When most people think about Las Vegas, they think of the mob, mobsters and gangland violence. It has its founding in that with a very, very famous hotel, the Flamingo Hotel and Casino. When most people think about Las Vegas, they think of the mob, mobsters and gangland violence. It has its founding in that with a very, very famous hotel, the Flamingo Hotel and Casino. A person by the name of Benjamin Spiegel, or Bugsy Spiegel, or simply Bugsy. He was a mobster, he was a gangster, he was a hitman for Lucky Luciano. Lucky Luciano was one of the key figures in the mob in those days. Now, the hotel was built in 1946 and opened in December of 1946. It was the first hotel casino on the Strip. It created the Strip. Other hotels were owned by the mob as well, such as the Thunderbird and several other ones. Historical items, things that you can find from those establishments, are usually very sought after because of the tie-ins with history and various other aspects. They have multiple categories or multi-category interests to a lot of people, and they're usually worth a lot of money because of that. What multi-category interest means is that it appeals to not just one type of person, like just a collector of stamps, for an example, but it will also be of interest to people that may want Las Vegas items, historical mob-related items, casino items, restaurant, hotel-related items, things where famous people went or performers were in a specific location, things like that. So there's so many more people that are interested in it. It turns them into a very hot and desirable item. Now, Bugsy only ran the hotel for about 6 months. During his time of construction, it was only supposed to cost $1.5 million. It ended up costing $6 million, and the story is that he was rubbed out for ripping off the mob. Luciano, ripping off the mob for the money they fronted him to build it and skimming off the top before the building was even done. Now, the mob still controlled it after he was out of the picture, and it still was around for years and years after that. But the earliest days when Las Vegas was just being started, when there was only one or two casinos out there, where it was truly the Wild West of gambling, those are the most desirable, the ones that I look for the most, and the ones that usually give us the biggest return on our investment. Now, we were lucky enough the other day to pick up a massive assortment of vintage travel-related paper items, all from the late 40s and the very, very first few years of the 1950s. They went to Las Vegas, and there was some very fine, very unique, very well-preserved collectibles from the time when Las Vegas was just founded, from the very first hotel, the Flamingo. Now, it was opened in end of 46, 47, 48, these were pretty much what you would have found at the hotel itself. And I was lucky enough to get several of these. It's the type of piece that's just more so of a historical importance than just say it's just a normal collectible. It's just something to make a few bucks on. To me, this is really unique and historical because it's from the founding of Las Vegas. Las Vegas would not be what it is today if it wasn't for the mob coming in there and creating the environment, the city, the businesses that these days do run it on, I would imagine, mostly a legal status. These are just extremely historical to me and things that will sell extremely fast for some very decent money. Collectibles like these labels here can sell anywhere from 25 to say 55, 60 bucks each. And we've got, as I said, several of them. I've got a few more in the stack over here. The most common place to have acquired these is actually at the hotel. In this case, the collection I got was all from a family who traveled around a lot and did some other businesses on the side. So these are all acquired from the place of business. They were acquired at the Flamingo. Now, some of the most valuable items are the ones that would be items you would get at the hotel. Flamingo items top the value chart on eBay and many other sites when it goes for like brochures and things along that line. Labels as well. The label I showed you, they reproduce it. On eBay, you're lucky if one single original label shows up and sells per year because they just aren't listed. There's rare to even see any of them up there. With the right keywords, you're going to get multiple different types of people seeing it. Again, it has to be the right keyword, good images, and they do extremely well. We've had other pieces before, and they usually sold fairly quickly. Again, you've got to put the words in there. If you're not adding things like Bugsy or something into the title, chances are you're not going to get as much as someone else. The mob tie-in is huge, and it adds a whole nother group of people coming in to buy it. Las Vegas collectors. They're going to want something from the very first ever casino in the city. So again, these are the items that I source down. And people say, well, how are you ever going to find those? I hear that all the time on some of the items that I talk about. They made probably a few million of every single one of the items that they did because they used them for multiple time frames or for a whole year. And when Las Vegas was starting out, you know, they were cranking in business. Hollywood celebrities were coming out there. They turned it into a news hub of, you know, events and things. So a lot of these types of things were produced. They weren't just produced for the local area either. They were sent out to travel agencies and things like that as well. So they're still out there, and there's still a decent chunk, not of everything, but large chunks of some of these items are still out there to be discovered. A lot of people just throw them out. They just don't think there's a value in them as well. Now here, for an example, is a directory of things at the hotel. Prices, again, end of the 1940s, this was probably made. Now the back has rates on it from the hotel as well. There's casino common information. There's stuff about the shows they have, the performers that are there. These things are extremely collectible for that reason. How to get in touch with operator and thing when you're staying in the hotel. So more than likely, this is a hotel only piece. You had to get it maybe in your room when you actually checked in or at the front desk when you arrived, and it told you how you can do anything in the hotel you wanted to do. Menus from the hotel's restaurants are good. Things from the bars there are good. Like this one here, which has a little bit of a tiki tie-in on the back. It announces some famous people actually performing there. These are performances you can look up, you know, on live performances and things, some of the sites that are out there to figure out for sure on a date on something if it doesn't have a date. A lot of these were established events. You know, it's a nice piece, original. It might have been, you know, chopped off and stuck up on the wall somewhere. There might have been a bigger version of these. Things like this could easily be worth 100, 150 bucks. You know, it's a huge collectible field. Here's another one, the Flamingo. Nice shot of the front. Some of the earlier postcards can be worth some good money. Flyers, handouts, window decals, parking stickers. Any of those sorts of things from these types of establishments can be worth some very good money. Here's a real good one here for those of you who have followed me. Group on the bottom, you should easily recognize that name. I just talked about it in another video in our Patreon group. Again, YouTube memberships will see that one too, but these types of things date it. This will add to the value of it. On top of it being the Flamingo, it has some very well-known, very sought-after performers that have a major following even still to this day. So something like this mailer here, advertising performances in Las Vegas at the very first hotel casino ever of some very well-known people tied to movies, tied to Hollywood, tied to loved and cherished characters. This will carry a good value. It's not just some rando tourist item that somebody grabbed up. It's historically significant to me and to a large chunk of people, to the collectors of the musical groups, to collectors of, you know, certain movie related items, to collectors of the mob, to collectors of hotels, to collectors of casinos, to Las Vegas historical collector societies and groups. So that's a multi-category interest because of the tie-ins to it. The condition as well, other than some foxing, lends credence to its unused state, to its preservation, to the fact that it's not all beat up, that it's not scribbled on, a chunk's not missing out of it. Again, 100 bucks or better, I would guess. Probably the most expensive piece I've ever seen from the Flamingo itself was a table topper. And a table topper, if you're not aware what that is the little advertising piece that would sit on a coffee table on the bar and would advertise other things in either the restaurant, the bar, or other things that were going on in the hotel. It was like a little A-frame. It would be a little narrower than this. It would have a bottom. It would fold together. It was printed with some nice graphics on it always. Those can go for some crazy money from restaurants and hotels and places just like this. That one went for $500, the one that I saw. And that was probably a fair price based on the scarcity. It wasn't made to be handed out. It was only made to fill spots on a table. If it was damaged, then they would have replaced it, and chances are it would have just been trashed. Most people wouldn't have been able to take one home. They wouldn't have said, hey, go ahead and take these off. They would have reused them for days on end if they were still in good condition. They still use those sorts of things today. These types of items make us a small fortune in return. Huge profits. Large chunk of these can sell fairly quickly. Another huge chunk of them may be longer tail items, but over the long run, we make, 4, 5, 1,000 times percent on profit on it. So if we invest $10, we could be making hundreds off that $10 or even more. Again, it just depends on what the items are, what the condition is, what the historical tie-ins to them were. Now with this lot here, they came in a big box. I've got a big box of these full. This was full about 25 or 30 pounds of this stuff. This is probably 4 pounds or less right here. And there's 126, 127 items in this stack right here, plus this one. Now these are the ones that I pulled out off just the top of it. When I looked at the box to decide if I was going to buy it, I just saw one of those stickers and looked at that and then said yes. Paid 50 bucks for the box. I didn't look at the rest of it. I took a chance based on just the scattering of stuff that was at the top of it. The last time I had that label, I sold it for almost $45. And it's been a long time since I've seen one, so I know they're not very common. I run into hotel stuff from the same hotel all the time. The Roosevelt or whatever, it doesn't matter. The Ambassador, most of the New York ones, I've had dozens of the same labels, half a dozen of the same brochures. I'm not shocked when I see them, but this is one of those that they spent the time, the effort, they traveled around, they stayed in multiple hotels. This is just like the primo top end of vintage Las Vegas collectibles in general. This collection is a treasure trove of travel-related items in general. I love this sort of thing. It's been my bread and butter for many, many years. It supplies us with a routine, constant, nearly daily return on our investment years after we made the purchase even. It continues on and on and on. We always get our money back on these very, very quickly, usually within the first day or two of listing items. They're out the door. It still leaves us hundreds and hundreds of items to make money on, whether we lot them up, sell them individually, whether they're quick sellers, or whether they sit for a while. It doesn't matter because we get our money back right away. It's just the perfect example of a good item to look for. These are hot right now. Most of the people who buy these have money. They're buying things for $500, $600 that the normal person would, be like, why would I ever spend that kind of money on a brochure or a piece of paper or something? But to them, it's something cool. It's important. Historians, collectors, and things like that. I collect. I get it. Some of these are just, the condition alone is beyond, touch, because you just don't see them where it looks like they were grabbed and picked up in like 1949, shoved in a nice, protected sleeve and never removed out of that sleeve all the way up till now, 2025. It's just awesome content. Again, another mob-related, mob-ran hotel casino, the Thunderbird. You've probably heard of a lot of the names. These were mentioned in movies and, exposés and things like that. The people in here are fairly well known. Hollywood celebrities mingling with the mob and, nice giant blow-ups like this. Again, this is something that might get me 150 bucks or better because it's the Hollywood tie-in, not just Las Vegas. The Thunderbirds from the earliest days of Hollywood too. Not the first one, again, the Flamingo was the first one. Opened in 1946, December, over a 3-day event. Those are things that I remember because I'm fascinated by the history and stuff. Being able to touch something that was involved in that era, that time frame. It's not the glorification or any of the violence or anything else like that. It's the history that's tied to it. It's all the experiences, the atmosphere, what was going on in the world today that makes these interesting and highly collectible. Someone who did a lot of religious performances and music and gospel and things like that is doing performances at a hotel, a casino, gambling establishment ran by the mob. It's unique, it's interesting, it brings back a time long since gone. You'll see people frame these and mat these on the wall in an office. Something like this would be a huge piece on a wall, a nice collectible. Hopefully you can see the value in something like this, because this is an exciting piece of history that's just of interest to so many different types of people. Now, if you're in my Patreon group or my YouTube membership, you're gonna see a whole mess of these, because again, I've got 25 pounds, probably another 8 times this stack you see right here. And it just goes on. There's a lot of Las Vegas material in here. This is just a touch of it. A maid's card from El Rancho, Vegas. I mean, these are just some really interesting, unique items that most people would have never saved in their wildest dreams. This may be the only one that shows up on eBay in 3 years, 5 years. You just never know. But if you're not paying attention or looking for things like this, things that were meant to be discarded, thrown out, left in the hotel room when they were done with the stay, those are the types of items that usually carry the most value of these sorts of things. For me, it's hard material. It's something tangible. It's paper. I can touch it. I can feel it. I can smell the age to it. If you go into an old house or an estate sale or something, that smell to me is cool. It's neat. It just reeks of history. It's not stale or anything else like that. And that's exciting. That's proof. That's provenance that this is old, original stuff. You know, and that's the thrill, the joy of finding stuff that advertises, stuff that's, again, a way of life that doesn't exist. Technology is taken over, and, you know, that's why it's so collectible. Here's a shot of the earliest days of Las Vegas right there, and it's just a small little stretch of land with nothing else in the background, nothing else around it. The streets aren't jam-packed with anything. It's just historical in every way you can talk about. And these are hot, again, as I said. These are the sorts of items that can, you know, make you a lot of money for a minimal amount of investment as well. And you will get some quick ones that sell immediately right upon listing. But anyway, that's what I have for you today. Hopefully that gave you some ideas, some thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell all your friends.
Once there was an ant and a grasshopper. The ant worked day and night while his friend the grasshopper fiddled away his free time. Then when the ant left on his winter vacation, was the grasshopper left in the cold? 'Cause the grasshopper was on the payroll savings plan. And by now, all those U.S. savings bonds added up to a big surprise to the ant and a big winter vacation for the grasshopper. Moral, buy U.S. savings bonds and you don't need a rich ant.